Chapter 1, Introduction. Who I am. They say every story begins somewhere. Mine begins in the dimly lit back room of a club, neon lights flickering outside, muffled music bleeding through the walls, and the faint smell of sweat, perfume, and cheap alcohol hanging thick in the air. This place, this crazy, chaotic den of flashing colors and pulsating beats, is where I live most nights. Not by choice, but by necessity. My name is Jake. Yeah, just Jake. No last name needed here. I'm a striper, a professional dancer who takes off his clothes for money. To many, it's just a job. To some, a lifestyle. For me, it's complicated. I didn't grow up dreaming of stages or spotlight. Hell, I didn't even know the word stripper was a thing until I was 22, working dead-end jobs and wondering if life was going to pass me by. But life has a strange way of pushing you into places you never expected. It started as a dare from a friend. Come with me to this club, he said. You'll have fun, and who knows, maybe you're a natural. I laughed it off, but that night I stepped into the club and something inside me shifted. The energy was electric, the crowd hungry for distraction, the music pounding, the laughter and shouts blending into a strange kind of symphony. I watched the dancers move with confidence and grace, how they owned the room, how people's eyes followed their every step. I felt a curious pull, a sudden urge to be seen, to belong somewhere. The manager noticed me too. You've got something, he said after a while. Ever thought about dancing? The next week, I tried it. At first, it was clumsy. I was awkward under the spotlight, unsure of how to move, how to make the audience feel anything. But as the nights passed, something inside me opened up. The stage became a place where I could shed more than just my clothes. I could shed my doubts, my fears, the invisible chains of my everyday life. The job isn't glamorous, no matter what movies tell you. It's hard work, physically demanding, emotionally draining. You meet all kinds of people, some lonely, some lost, some just looking for a momentary escape. I'm not just a dancer, I'm a listener, a mirror reflecting their desires and frustrations. Sometimes, I'm even a friend. But there's a cost. Behind every smile and every seductive move, there's a man grappling with his own loneliness. I'm no exception. The nights blur together, faces, names, stories flashing by like scenes from a film reel. I can't stop. Some nights, I go home feeling empty, wondering if anyone ever really sees me. Still, this is my world now. A world of neon lights and whispered secrets, of fleeting touches and broken promises. And though the life of a stripper might seem simple on the surface, it's anything but. Tonight, like every night, I step onto the stage and into the spotlight. The music hits, the crowd cheers, and for those few moments, I am not just Jake. I am something more, a performer, a fantasy, a story waiting to be told. But who am I beneath the flashing lights? That's the real question. And maybe, just maybe, over the course of these stories, you'll get a glimpse. The club where I work, Euphoria, is a place of contrasts. On one hand, it's loud, bright, and overflowing with energy. On the other, it's a sanctuary for people hiding from their lives. Regulars come not just for the entertainment but for the company, for the escape. And I meet them all, the desperate, the hopeful, the broken. There's Mike, the 28-year-old software developer who's never had a serious relationship but comes here every Friday night to unwind. There's Chris, a charming bartender with a secret heartbreak buried deep in his smile. And then there's the mysterious Alex, a man who seems to carry his own shadows wherever he goes. Each of them brings a story, and I become a part of those stories, even if just for a night. I listen, I dance, I connect. Sometimes it's just business. Other times it's complicated. People assume this work is easy, that it's all fun and games, but they don't see the pressure, the judgment, the loneliness that can come with it. They don't see the moments when you're all alone in a tiny apartment, wondering what comes next. I didn't choose this life because it was easy. I chose it because it gave me something else, a sense of control, a chance to rewrite my story, even if only under the neon lights. Looking back, I realized that becoming a stripper was less about stripping clothes and more about stripping layers of pain, shame, and invisibility. It's a paradox, being seen by hundreds but still feeling unseen. I won't pretend my story is perfect. It's messy, raw, and sometimes painfully honest. But it's mine. Over the next chapters, I'll take you through the lives I've touched and the lives that have touched me. You'll hear about the men who come searching for something, friendship, validation, or just a moment of escape, and the complicated dance of relationships that grow in this unusual world. So buckle up. This is not just a story about a stripper. It's a story about people, about connection, about the messy, beautiful chaos of life behind the curtain. And it's only just beginning. Chapter 2. The Bachelors and Their World. If Chapter 1 was about who I am, then Chapter 2 is about the people who come into my world, the Bachelors. Men who, for all their differences, share a common thread. They're searching for connection, for meaning, for escape. Every night, the club fills with them guys from every walk of life. Some come alone, some with friends, but all with stories I could spend hours unraveling. It's funny how much you learn about people when they think you're just a dancer. Let me introduce you to a few of them. These are not just clients, they're pieces of the puzzle that make up this crazy, beautiful world. First, there's Mike. You might call him a classic example of the modern bachelor. Late 20s, tech job, intelligent but painfully shy. Mike is the kind of guy who spends most of his time behind a computer screen, writing code and solving problems that don't involve human emotion. He's the guy who orders his drinks neat, watches the show quietly, and sometimes forgets that he's actually in the middle of a club full of people. Mike's story is one of frustration and hope. He's never been lucky with women, not because he's ugly or boring, but because he's afraid. Afraid of rejection, of messing up, of being vulnerable. He comes to the club not just for entertainment but for a glimpse of confidence he wishes he had. One night, he asked me how I deal with the loneliness. It caught me off guard. I didn't have a perfect answer, but I told him this: sometimes, you have to create your own light, even in the darkest places. Mike nodded, and for a moment, I saw something real in his eyes, not just a customer, but a human being trying to figure things out. Then there's Chris, the bartender. Different from Mike in every way. Chris is outgoing, charming, the life of the party. He works late shifts and comes here afterward to blow off steam. But beneath the confident smile lies a story most people don't see. Chris once confided in me about a heartbreak that still haunted him, how he'd lost someone he loved because he never knew how to hold on. He told me that sometimes, the hardest thing isn't finding love, but keeping it. We talked for hours that night about love, loss, and the messy reality of relationships. And Alex. Oh, Alex. He's a mystery wrapped in a leather jacket. Comes in late, always alone, always watching. People think he's just another rich guy with nothing to do, but there's more beneath the surface. Alex carries the weight of expectations, family pressure, a failed engagement, a hidden addiction. He comes here to escape, to forget who he's supposed to be for a few hours. One night, after the crowd had thinned, Alex and I shared a smoke outside. He opened up about his struggles with addiction, the guilt he felt, and how he was slowly trying to piece his life back together. That night, he wasn't just a client. He was someone fighting his own demons. These men, and many others like them, come through my world with their own battles. They wear masks, laugh loudly, sometimes cry quietly, and I see it all: the loneliness beneath bravado, the hope behind despair. It's strange, really, how much trust people put in someone like me. Maybe it's because, on stage, I'm both performer and confidant. The club is a theater where people don't just watch, they reveal. But it's not just about the men themselves. It's about the connections they seek, the lives tangled beyond the club doors. Many of these bachelors have complicated relationships with their families and friends. Some come from broken homes, others from households that expect too much. Some are trying to break free from past mistakes, while others are caught in cycles they can't escape. I've seen friendships tested here. Rivalries flare over women, or over debts, or just pride. Sometimes the club becomes a pressure cooker for emotions that have nowhere else to go. One night, a fight broke out between two regulars, Jake and Tommy. Years of bottled-up resentment exploded over something stupid: a spilled drink, a misunderstood glance. I stepped in, but it was clear the problem ran deep. Afterward, they both apologized, but I could tell the tension was far from over. This world is messy. It's filled with contradictions, joy and pain, connection and isolation, hope and despair. The bachelors come here looking for release, for fun, for distraction. But sometimes, they find something unexpected. For some, the club is a place to confront themselves. For others, a place to lose themselves. And for me, it's where I learn what it means to be human. There's an unspoken understanding between us, the dancers and the bachelors. We all have our masks, our stories, our pain. And maybe, in this strange dance, we help each other survive. I won't lie and say every night is easy. Some nights, I feel the weight of their loneliness, the ghosts they carry. But then there are moments of pure connection: a laugh shared, a glance held a little longer, a dance that speaks louder than words. And that's why I keep going. Because beneath the flashing lights and pulsing music, beneath the costumes and the makeup, We're all just people trying to be seen, trying to be understood. So, if you ever walk into a place like mine, don't just see the surface. Look deeper. You'll find stories. You'll find struggles. You'll find men who are more than just bachelors. They're men with dreams, with fears, with hearts that beat just like yours. And maybe, if you listen closely enough, you'll hear their stories too. That's the world of The Bachelors, a world full of contradictions, full of longing. And it's only the beginning. Chapter 3. Tangled relationships. In this world of neon lights and pulsing music, the lines between business and emotion blur in ways I never expected. I always told myself it was just a job, a way to pay the bills and keep the lights on. But as time went on, things got complicated. Much more complicated. You see, when you dance for a living, you learn that every touch, every glance, every whispered word carries weight. For some, it's just a fleeting thrill. For others, it's the beginning of something messy and real. I remember the first time I let my guard down. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something I thought about ahead of time. One night, after my set, a guy named Darren approached me. Darren was a regular, a quiet guy who always sat in the corner, nursing a drink and watching the room like he was searching for something. He asked me to join him for a drink at the bar. I wasn't supposed to. Rules said no mixing business with personal life. But something about him made me say yes. Maybe it was the loneliness I saw in his eyes. Maybe it was the way he listened without judgment. That night, we talked for hours. About life, about fears, about dreams. And before I knew it, things crossed a line. We ended up back at his place, and it wasn't just about the physical. It was deeper, an exchange of vulnerability, trust, a moment of real connection. That night changed everything for me, because suddenly, what I thought was just a job became a tangled web of emotions. Darren wasn't just a client, he was someone who made me question who I was, what I wanted. But it wasn't always that simple. Over time, I found myself involved with more than just Darren. The club's clientele is a revolving door, and some connections lingered longer than expected. There was Lucas, a confident, charming guy with a complicated past. He was married secretly but came to the club looking for something he couldn't find at home. Our relationship was electric but dangerous. Every meeting was charged with the thrill of the forbiddance. We both knew it couldn't last, but for a while, it gave us both an escape. Then there was Tom, a younger guy struggling with his identity. Our relationship started as physical, but I became a mentor, a friend. I saw his pain, his confusion, and I wanted to help him find himself. But that kind of closeness isn't easy in this line of work. Boundaries blur, and feelings get hurt. Intimacy in my world is complicated. It's not just about sex, it's about connection. But connection is a double-edged sword. It can heal, but it can also hurt deeply. Sometimes, I wondered if I was using these relationships as a way to fill my own emptiness. Maybe I was chasing something I couldn't name. Or maybe I was just scared of being alone. There were nights when it all felt like too much, the constant dance between desire and detachment, affection and business. Nights when I'd lie awake, thinking about the people I'd been with, wondering what they thought of me, what I really meant to them. Did they see me as just a fantasy, a temporary escape, or was there something more? One of the hardest parts was dealing with jealousy and betrayal, things I never expected to face in this job. When I found out Lucas was still married, and his wife had started asking questions, I felt caught in the middle of something I couldn't control. And then there was the time a friend of mine told me he saw me with Darren at a party. The rumor spread quickly. Suddenly, everyone at the club knew, and the lines between private and public vanished. The relationships I had weren't just about sex, they were about identity, trust, and the search for something real in a world built on illusion. I learned that love and desire are messy. They don't fit neatly into boxes or rules. They come when you least expect them, in the most complicated forms. Despite all the complications, I wouldn't trade those connections for anything, because they taught me about myself, about the power of vulnerability, about the courage it takes to let someone in. And maybe that's the hardest dance of all. So, as I moved through the crowd each night, performing my routines, I carried these stories with me. Stories of passion and pain, of connection and loss. Because beneath the surface of this life is a simple truth. We all want to be seen. We all want to be loved, even if it's just for a night. Chapter 4. Friends and families. In this world, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. I thought I understood the boundaries between me and the clients, between business and personal life. But those lines blurred faster than I could have imagined. It started with friends, not just the clients themselves, but their close circles, the people they trust, the ones they hang out with outside the club. There was Ryan, Mike's best friend. Ryan was different from Mike, outgoing, confident, almost reckless. One night, Ryan came up to me after my set. Something about his eyes caught my attention. We started talking, just small talk at first, but then deeper conversations followed. Before long, our interactions grew more intimate. I felt the thrill, yes, but also the weight of crossing into forbidden territory. Ryan was part of Mike's life. It wasn't just a physical thing, it was tangled in friendship and loyalty. Then came the families. I never thought I'd get involved with clients' families. It sounds crazy, right? But life has a way of surprising you. One evening, after a private party, I met Emily. She was the sister of one of the regulars. Emily wasn't supposed to be there, but somehow, fate put us in the same room. Our connection was unexpected and powerful. It wasn't just about attraction, it was about two people who saw each other beyond the surface. But with every secret meeting, I knew we were stepping into dangerous territory. The risk wasn't just personal, it was about trust, betrayal, and the fragile bonds that hold people together. These relationships weren't just secret affairs. They were explosions waiting to happen. Friendships cracked, loyalties tested. I saw how fragile the lives around me really were. Sometimes I was the cause, sometimes just a witness. The guilt was real, but so was the desire to be seen, to be wanted, to feel alive. One night, I was confronted by Mike himself. Had found out about Ryan and me. The anger in his eyes was something you'll never forget. It wasn't just about jealousy, it was about betrayal, about broken trust. We talked for hours, raw and painful. No punches thrown, just words that cut deep. It was a turning point. I realized that my actions didn't just affect me, they rippled out like waves, touching lives in ways I hadn't considered. Despite the chaos, there was also beauty in these tangled connections. Moments of honesty, of unexpected friendship, of understanding. Emily and I kept seeing each other, even though we both knew it was risky. We found solace in each other's company, a brief escape from the complicated worlds we came from. This chapter of my life taught me that love and desire don't respect boundaries. They don't care about rules or consequences. They just happen. And sometimes they hurt. But they also teach us who we really are. That's the story of friends and families, of crossing lines and facing the fallout. It's messy, it's painful, but it's real. And it's part of the journey. Chapter 5. Consequences and Reflection. By the time I reached this point in my life, I realized that every choice I made carried weight more than I ever expected. The tangled web of relationships, the blurred lines between business and personal, the secrets kept and the trust broken, they all came crashing down in ways I hadn't prepared for. The fallout wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was quiet, a missed call, a cold look, a friendship fading into silence. But the impact was real. After the confrontation with Mike, things changed. The atmosphere at the club shifted. Some people looked at me differently, judgment, pity, curiosity. I tried to keep my head down, focus on the job, but it was impossible to ignore. I found myself questioning everything. Was this who I wanted to be? Was this the life I had imagined when I first stepped on that stage? There were nights I stayed awake for hours, replaying moments, wondering if I could have done things differently. Could I have avoided hurting people? Could I have drawn clearer boundaries? But the truth is, in this line of work, boundaries are messy. They're lines drawn in sand, easily washed away by emotions and circumstance. At the same time, I learned about forgiveness, not just from others, but from myself. Emily was one of the few who stood by me. Despite everything, she saw me beyond the mistakes, beyond the chaos. Our relationship wasn't perfect, it never could be, but it was honest. And that honesty became a refuge. I also began to think about the future. Could I keep living this life? The late nights, the constant performance, the emotional roller coaster. Sometimes I dreamed of something different. A life where I wasn't just a performer, but a man with stability, with roots, with a story that didn't revolve around the stage. But dreams don't always come easy. The club was my world. It was where I belonged, even with all its messiness. It was a place of survival, of connection, of moments that made life worth living. So, I made a choice, not to run away, but to grow, to learn from the pain, to find balance, to take control of my story. This chapter is about consequences, the price of choices and reflection, the chance to find meaning amidst chaos. Because in the end, life isn't about perfection. It's about being real, about facing the mess and still moving forward. And that's what I'm trying to do, one day at a time. Chapter 6. Acceptance and New Beginnings. Life has a way of teaching you lessons when you least expect them. For me, Those lessons came in the form of broken hearts, unexpected friendships, and the quiet moments between the flashing lights. After everything, the chaos, the pain, the mistakes, I reached a place I never thought I would: acceptance. Accepting who I am, with all my flaws and contradictions. Accepting the messy, complicated life I've lived and the people I've become close to along the way. It wasn't easy. Acceptance doesn't come overnight. It's a slow process, like learning to dance in the dark. I started to see my life not as a series of regrets, but as a collection of moments, some painful, some beautiful, all real. I found new strength in vulnerability, in opening up to people I trusted, in allowing myself to be seen, truly seen. I realized that the masks I wore weren't just for others, they were for me too. And sometimes, taking them off is the bravest thing you can do. The future still feels uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful. Hopeful that I can build something real, not just on stage, but in life. That I can find love, friendship, and peace. This chapter isn't an ending, it's a new beginning. A chance to rewrite the story, one day at a time. And maybe, that's the most important dance of all.